The air in the Führerbunker on the morning of April 20th, 1945, tasted like stale ambition and boiled cabbage. It was the Führer's 56th birthday, a day traditionally marked by lavish parades and triumphant brass bands. This year, the only parade was the slow, shuffling march of paranoia, and the band was the constant low thrum. The band was the constant low thrum of the Allied siege, hammering the ruined city above the underground bunker. In the map room, a space designed for world domination, but now primarily used for high-stakes card games. The games were secretly refereed by a surprisingly competent Martin Bormann, as Adolf Hitler stood hunched. He stood hunched over a colossal map of Greater Berlin, and his hands trembled less from age and more from frustration. His hands trembled less from age and more from the sheer magnificent frustration of having to deal with reality. Look, Bormann. Look, Hitler. Stabbed a thick red crayon at a spot near the Oder River, currently occupied by soldiers. The spot was currently occupied by 3 million furious Soviet soldiers, known colloquially as the Red Horde. The Russians are exactly where Frederick the Great wanted them. This is a glorious, perfectly executed strategic trap. Bormann, a man whose primary goal in life was to secure the least flammable yacht, nodded with enthusiastic insincerity. Magnificent Mein Führer, a genius application of the reverse pincer of disbelief, so they will not see it coming. Of course they will not. Hitler paced the small room, his uniform looking conspicuously crisp in the damp gloom. We have lured them in, and they think they are advancing 500 kilometers in a week. The fools are merely stretched. They have merely stretched their logistics to the breaking point, like a sausage skin before an ambitious butcher. The crucial element of this magnificent sausage skin strategy was the imminent, earth-shattering counteroffensive. The Allies believe we are finished, he sneered, tossing aside a crumpled intelligence report detailing mass desertions. They forget the power of Wunderwaffen, and they forget the fury of the German spirit and my ultimate armored reserve. They certainly forget that I, Adolf Hitler, have the ultimate armored reserve, known as Army Detachment Steiner. A momentary silence fell, broken only by the whimpering of Blondie, Hitler's German shepherd, chewing her leash. She was attempting to gnaw through her leash, sensing a coming explosion, military or ideological, to her system. General Helmut Weidling, the recently appointed and extremely reluctant commander of the Berlin defense area. He cleared his throat delicately, having the unfortunate task of embodying the military concept of facts to him. Mein Führer Weidling began adopting the precise, calm tone one might use when explaining trigonometry to a squirrel. With all due respect for General Steiner's spirit, I must reiterate the current disposition of Army Detachment Steiner. Hitler glowered, his eyes narrowing to suspicious slits, asking if they have secured the Pomeranian oil fields yet. They are securing something, Mein Führer, but their strength is not precisely up to the standards of Army Group Center. Weidling sighed, pulling out a small, highly compressed piece of paper detailing the assets of Army Detachment Steiner. As of 0600 hours, Army Detachment Steiner consists of the following operational assets. Firstly, 3 16-year-olds. They are 3 16-year-old boys from the Hitler Youth, named Klaus, Rudi, and Dieter. And Klaus has a head cold. Secondly, one very old dog, a dachshund, named Helmut, keeps trying to join the Volkssturm, thinking armbands are sausages. Thirdly, approximately 15 liters of low-grade tractor fuel, which we were hoping to trade for a single Panther tank. The trade fell through because the other side demanded coffee, so we are left with fuel and no operational tank. Hitler slammed his fist on the map, causing Blondie to yelp, and Eva Braun, who was polishing her pill, to jump. Nonsense that is Bolshevik disinformation, for Steiner has thousands, and I saw them myself. poised on the map. They are poised, and they are ready to crush Zhukov's flank like a rotten apple. So do not speak of weakness. Sir, the rotten apple is crushing us. Weidling muttered too low for the Führer to hear regarding the forces. The forces massing in Pomerania have been neutralized, and Rokossovsky has tied them down, while Zhukov broke through. We lost 5 days and the entire defensive line because the shelling had turned the marshland into a soup. Soup is good for the soul, Weidling, as it breeds resilience. Hitler waved a dismissive hand at the general. You generals are too focused on the terrain, while I am focused on destiny. And the moment Steiner strikes, the Soviets will panic, and they will turn tail and run back to the Volga, because it is pure, distilled genius. Bormann nodded fervently, saying, "It is like chess, except you are playing chess and the Russians play checkers." The birthday luncheon was a muted affair, held in the dining annex, decorated with wilting Edelweiss from Eva. The atmosphere was less celebratory feast and more final meal before an overdue and painful dental appointment. Joseph Goebbels, the diminutive minister of propaganda, stood at the head of the table, attempting to inject steroids. Comrades, colleagues, and loyal servants of the Reich. Goebbels' voice squeaked, battling the oppressive silence. Today marks not just the birth of our Führer, but the birth of the final glorious phase of the war against enemies. Our enemies are demoralized, and they are tired, shivering in their foxholes, worried about our secret weapons. He paused for dramatic effect, leaning in to say, "We have perfected the Wunderwaffen, and not merely rockets. I speak now of the Kaffeewaffe, a device capable of producing unlimited, high-quality stimulant coffee for troops. I speak of the Heizungswaffe, a new radiant heat technology that will melt the Oder River ice to trap tanks. Soon we will deploy the Wunderwaffles, a nutritious, square-shaped breakfast pastry designed to boost morale." Hermann Goering had somehow managed to waddle his way into the bunker, despite his general policy of safety. What about actual tanks? Goebbels swore I was hoping for something that could fly me to a neutral nation with wine. Goering, visibly sweating, pulled a large, damp map of the Autobahn network from his oversized and heavy coat. He did not care about waffles. He cared about securing the fastest route west, away from the doomed city. The race to flee the city had become the unspoken and fiercest competition among the frantic Nazi high command. Everyone knew the city was doomed, so the only question was, who would secure the single remaining armored car? Bormann, the master of subtle manipulation, cornered Hitler's chauffeur Kempka near the stale bread basket. Kempka, old friend, Bormann purred, slipping him a highly valuable, slightly used gold watch for rapid transit. Hypothetically speaking, if one were to require immediate, rapid transit out of this increasingly damp fortress, how long would it take to disable the tires on Goering's reserved vehicle? Asked Bormann, seeking an escape route. About 5 minutes, Herr Bormann Kempka replied, pocketing the watch. But I already misplaced the keys in sewage. Excellent initiative. Kempka Bormann commended, noting that the truly great leaders always focus on logistics. Meanwhile, Eva Braun approached her husband, carefully adjusting a strand of pearls before the inevitable chaos. Adi, darling, before the chaos, perhaps we could discuss the presentation of the cyanide capsules for the end. Do you think mixing it with champagne is too cliché? Or should we opt for a small and elegant chocolate treat? We shall die as we lived, Eva Hitler declared dramatically, though he was distracted by a blotch of gravy on map. We die with flair, and with an undying loyalty to my dog Blondie, who gets the first pill. A testament to purity. You, Eva, come second, and then me. So Eva sighed, slightly miffed, that it is always me or the dog getting second. The moment arrived, and a small, sad cake, more of a dense, fortified sponge, was wheeled into the dining annex. It bore 56 candles, which immediately started smoking heavily, filling the bunker with acrid and thick fumes. Hitler, basking in the manufactured glow of adoration from Goebbels, raised his hand to deliver his assessment. "Today we stand at the threshold of destiny," Hitler proclaimed, voice rising to a familiar and dangerous pitch. "The storm clouds have gathered, but we, the chosen few, shall emerge victorious. Because the spirit of the soldier," the sound was not distant, it was visceral. And it was the sound of reality rudely interrupting the fantasy. The heavy concrete ceiling shuddered violently, and dust rained down, settling like a gray shroud on the cake. A silver gravy boat, apparently too disloyal to stay on the table, vaulted across the room and smashed a portrait. The assembled staff froze as the low, constant rumble had escalated into a sharp, focused thud. 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 What was that Goring squeaked, attempting and failing to look inconspicuous behind a coat rack in the corner? Hitler, momentarily stunned, blinked rapidly, shaking the dust from his slicked-back hair, and recovered speed. That Hitler announced, pointing a trembling finger toward the ceiling, was the sound of our new defensive shield. Goebbels make a note that the official announcement is that the enemy artillery is being shattered upon impact. We are so advanced their shells disintegrate before they land. So Goebbels, pulling a splinter, scribbled notes. Weidling, however, refused to play along, as the commander of the city defense required more information on auras. Mein Führer, with respect. That was not an aura, that was a 203mm howitzer. And the Soviet artillery has arrived. They are calibrating their firing solutions into the inner city, as another shell landed, shaking the silverware. Hitler's composure evaporated, replaced by a volcanic spittle-flecked fury, screaming about treachery and cake. "You have allowed the Bolshevik savages to interrupt my birthday cake." He rounded on Weidling, seizing his lapels. "I gave you explicit orders to hold the Oder-Neisse line, and I gave you Steiner. So why are we discussing shells?" Sir, the Oder-Neisse line stretched for hundreds of kilometers, and Zhukov had millions of men and many tanks. We had ill-fed veterans, the unfit, and a collection of boys and old men armed with anti-tank rockets in fear. They fought valiantly at the Silo Heights, but the sheer volume of Soviet fire blinded our advancing troops. They were wiped out in a slaughterhouse, as one officer reported. So Hitler released Weidling, staggering back. Slaughterhouse. Always the pessimism. Always the excuses. Did Frederick the Great complain about the terrain? Did he whine about lack of Panzerfaust instruction manuals? No. He rallied his troops with spirit. So where is it? "It is running west, mein Führer," Weidling replied dryly, as the terrifying reality rested upon the shoulders. Outside the bunker near the ruins of the Brandenburg Gate, a Volkssturm battalion was attempting to dig a hole. Company 12 comprised mostly of men over 60, who had been medically categorized as too frail for papier-mâché. "Franz, are you sure we are supposed to dig into the road?" asked Gunther, a retired baker whose spectacles steamed. "That is what the pamphlet said. Utilize existing street structure for maximum concealment." Franz wheezed, coughing. "Besides, the Red Army is moving so fast, they probably will not notice the road is missing amid the destruction." Their only hope lay in the handful of anti-tank weapons distributed among the youth and the aged citizens. Nearby, a squad of Hitler Youth boys, barely strong enough to carry their rifles, were receiving instruction. "All right, listen up, Pimpf," the sergeant barked, demonstrating the Panzerfaust and warning about the backblast. "Do not let the backblast hit the comrade behind you, or you will accidentally set his trousers on fire today." "Anyone know why?" asked the sergeant. So a small, terrified boy named Dieter raised his hand to answer the query. "Because, Sergeant, the trousers are often made of highly flammable rayon blends," Sir asked the small, terrified boy. "No, you idiot. Because the backblast is hot enough to burn through steel, let alone your comrade's digestive tract." "Come on, this weapon is critical. It is the only thing stopping 6,000 Soviet tanks from turning your hometown flat. Rudy, the boy with the severe head cold, and one of the operational assets of Army Detachment Steiner, tried it. He picked up the Panzerfaust, which looked like a medieval cannon in his small hands, aimed it, and closed the eyes. He promptly dropped the rocket tube on his foot, shouting, "Ow, sir! Can we just surrender?" asked the boy in pain. The sergeant grabbed Rudy's collar, yelling, "Surrender is cowardice, and in Berlin we do not tolerate cowards." He pointed to a lamppost where a freshly hanged deserter, a miserable-looking elderly man, dangled limply. A handwritten sign was tied to his chest, saying, "I was a coward, so that is what happens to cowards in the city." Now pick up your anti-tank tube and remember, the Führer needs you to fight until the bitter end, said Sergeant. Meanwhile, the Red Army was not interested in nuances or the quality of German trousers as they advanced fast. They were advancing with vengeance in their eyes, fueled by the memory of Stalingrad and atrocities in the East. They moved with lightning speed, and by the end of the day, they had advanced 500 kilometers near the capital. Back in the suffocating bunker, Hitler was now engaged in a fierce screaming match with his large map table. The reality of the Eastern advance, detailed in a series of increasingly apocalyptic reports, had shattered him. Steiner has failed me. He is disloyal. The whole army detachment is useless, consisting of 3 teenagers. This is what I get for trusting the Wehrmacht. So Bormann returned from his sabotage attempt to comfort him. Mein Führer, calm yourself. Perhaps Steiner simply needs better motivation, like a supply of Wunderwaffles. Silence. Bormann. I have been betrayed by cowards and incompetents, and all of you are competing to flee city. Goring is probably already trying to barter his medals for a parachute while being wedged through a vent. Weidling, seeing that the situation had devolved from military strategy to pure theater, braced himself. Mein Führer, the enemy is at the gates. Zhukov and Konyev are racing for the center, and we have few troops. We are short on ammunition and critically low on fuel. So may I propose a tactical breakout? Asked Weidling. A breakout, Hitler scoffed, as if Weidling had suggested dressing up as ballerinas to abandon the capital. No, sir. We could use the remaining Panzer Corps to punch a hole through the weaker Western Soviet line. We can link up with the remnants of Army Group Vistula and regroup for a defense behind the Elbe River. Hitler slapped the map so hard it threatened to tear, shouting, "No, I shall not retreat. I shall fall here. I will stay in the heart of Berlin like a hero. For I am the new Frederick the Great, and the city is relieved. I have one more ace, the hammer blow that will annihilate the Bolsheviks. General Walter Wenck is coming. His 12th Army, currently positioned to the southwest, will pivot immediately to smash the Soviet flank. They will link up with the desperate remnants of the 9th Army, which is trying to withdraw across the road. The enemy will be trapped, encircled, and destroyed, like Stalingrad in reverse. Hitler insisted with certainty. Weidling felt a chill, deeper than the bunker's dampness, because Wenck's 12th Army was already engaged. Furthermore, Wenck was miles away and focused on a single rational goal of getting civilians to the west. He wanted to surrender to the Americans, avoiding the savage Soviet vengeance, and not a futile suicide mission. Wenck will save us, Hitler insisted, his eyes glazing over with feverish certainty that he will save the Reich. The generals, knowing Wenck was not coming, exchanged miserable glances as the meeting devolved to death warrant. Weidling, I give you the authority to defend every street, every house, every latrine, and anyone who flees dies. No surrender. We fight until the bitter end. Yes, mein Führer. Weidling replied, formulating a plan to get pistol. As the generals filed out, some heading toward their commands, most heading toward the fastest possible exit. Goebbels lingered to catch Hitler's eye, stating, "Mein Führer, the reports are coming in, and the race is on." Zhukov and Konev have pushed into the city outskirts, and they are here. So Hitler stood alone, staring at map. The lines of the Soviet advance were closing in on his bunker like hungry jaws, and his birthday had been ruined. His imaginary armies had failed him, and his staff was prioritizing their personal escape over his destiny. He looked at the trembling Blondie, then at the elegant, empty chair where Eva Braun had been sitting recently. "The end is near, Goebbels," Hitler whispered, but not with fear, with a cold theatrical resolve regarding people. "The German people have failed me, and they were not worthy of the 1,000-year Reich. But I will not fail history." He turned the bunker lights, catching a manic glint in his eye, telling the press that the city is holding firm. "Tell them Venk is 20 minutes away, and tell them the Wunderwaffles are being distributed to the troops. I am retiring to my study. I have a wedding to plan, and a very important piece of cyanide to examine closely." Above ground in the devastated northeastern suburbs, the Red Army's tanks rolled past the ruins, grinding stones. The artillery fire intensified, no longer random, but precise, as each shell was a furious, resonant drumbeat. It signaled the arrival of the reckoning, and the next morning, the frenzied barrage would commence on center. The end had begun, and the first frantic competition, the race to flee, was already in full swing in the city.